Oh my God. I was watching some old wrestling yesterday. I have this new thing. As most of you know, I work from home and have been doing so for the last several years, before the pandemic. So I decided that during some of my meetings, I'm going to put on some Attitude Era type wrestling with the volume slightly above zero so I could hear it while still focusing on the meeting. And let me tell you guys, all right, I have really enjoyed watching like wrestling from 1998. That's where I'm at right now, like 1999 almost. You know what I mean? And that dark ministry, ministry of darkness, I should say, corporate ministry during that time. It's been fantastic, right? And it's really shown me a lot of good things about wrestling during the Attitude Era. Incredible stuff. And we're going to talk about that more in a different video. But right now, what up, cucks? We're going to talk about WWE Backlash, WrestleMania Backlash. Easily the worst pay-per-view ever. I don't even think anyone can disagree. I actually stopped watching this pay-per-view and went back to watching Attitude Era wrestling mid pay-per-view. That's how bad this shit was. Now, there were of course some good things. I mean, every pay-per-view, every segment, every episode of anything has some good things. But the pay-per-view fell apart and failed on many different levels. And before we talk about that, let's quickly go over the results match by match and explain why it was a complete failure. First of all, Cucky Rhodes versus Seth cucking Rollins, all right? Nobody wants to see this again, in my opinion. Now, the neckbeards are like, oh, what a great match. Nobody cares. It's two mid-carders pretending that they're main eventers, This should be for the Intercontinental title and should be happening every month. Just like they had Dolph Ziggler and The Miz every month. Just put this one in there and move on with your lives. Neither of these guys are real main eventers. Seth Rollins, one of the best wrestlers today. No doubt about it, right? Cody Rhodes, he's okay. He's decent at his job. But neither of these guys are main eventers. They should never be main eventers. They should never purport themselves to be booked like main eventers. They should have no qualms with understanding their role, and that is European Championship level wrestlers. These guys are on the level of Al Snow. I said it, motherfuckers. On the level of Al Snow, and they pretend that they're on the level of Stone Cold. It's nowhere close, right? Now, are they better in the ring than Al Snow? Who knows? Al Snow I thought was pretty good in the ring always, right? They're good in the ring, no doubt about it. But who cares about that? They lack the fundamentals required to be championship level main event wrestlers. Primarily, they lack the size, the charisma. Neither of these guys have any real charisma. I mean, Cody Rhodes has like a speech impairment. You know what I mean? And Seth Rollins, like this guy goes through gimmicks like I go through like toilet paper, motherfuckers. You know what I'm saying? Every 2 months, Seth Rollins has a different gimmick, unironically. And they're all shit. The Messiah, the Monday Night Messiah, the Visionary, now the fucking whatever the hell he is now, Seth freaking Rollins. It's like it gets worse and worse every time. Like this is not even a gimmick, you know what I mean? It's just annoying. Seth Rollins coming out there just dressed goofy and being goofy. It has its moments when it works. Like when he was dressing Roman Reigns, it worked because Roman Reigns is like overly serious. But this is not a gimmick. It's stupid. Seth Rollins doesn't understand wrestling. It's as simple as that. He can be the best in the ring of all time. He can be better than Shawn Michaels if he wants to. But it doesn't matter. Shawn Michaels was never the biggest star. Even though he main evented WrestleMania, he was never the biggest star. And there was reasons for that. Because he also lacked in some other departments. And we're talking about Shawn Michaels, who's about 50 times more charismatic than both Cucky Rhodes and Seth Rollins. But I digress, okay? This match, I didn't like it. I don't think it serves any purpose. It doesn't matter who wins. They might have a third match. They might have a 10th match. Nobody gives a damn, all right? It's very simple. There's only one thing that matters in this entire Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins feud, which is a stupid feud based on the fact that he was the opponent randomly chosen by Vince McMahon for WrestleMania. The only thing that matters is this. Will Cody Rhodes become a main eventer or will he not? Other than that, nobody gives a rat's ass about any of this, right? Either Cody Rhodes is going to go and start feuding with Roman Reigns at some point, which would just be laughable, in my opinion. Or, personally, I think more likely he's going to become the next Nakamura. He's going to have that initial, main event type push, and then that's going to be the end of that. Before you know it, he'll be teaming with Rick Boogs, and then, questioning his decisions, going back to Stardust, right? It's not good. This is not a pay-per-view level match. This is a match that should be happening on Monday Night Raw, and it should be about 10 minutes. That's all I got to say about that. Let's move on. Next up, we have Omos versus Lashley. Another complete waste of time. Omos is never going to happen, okay? He's never going to be the star that people think he might be. It's not going to happen. It takes a lot to become to be a big guy and become a huge star. A lot of people think it doesn't because, Vince McMahon loves the big guys. No, think about it. How many big guys have actually been stars? I can think of maybe like 4 or 5 if you don't count Undertaker, because he's just kind of different, you know. Big Show, Kane, Great Khali. There's two out there, I'm sure. But there's a lot more giant Gonzaleses, you know, and Umagas who are presented as big guys and like don't really achieve anything, right? There's a lot more of those than there are Big Shows and Great Khalis, you know. So it takes a lot. Think about what the Great Khali is. Think about what he looks like, right? He's like legit 6'3", and he's about twice the size of Omos. Like they're not even the same species, you know? And Omos is a big motherfucker, don't get me wrong. But Omos is boring, he has no charisma, and I don't care if people say Great Khali did have charisma. Great Khali was cool as shit. You know, he understood wrestling for what it was, more importantly, you know? Omos doesn't. Omos is just there because he's big. He's not exciting, he's not entertaining, right? And there's nothing about him. It's never going to happen. It's a complete waste of time. This is a waste of the card. Omos should just be fired right now and get it over with. Just like I said about everyone else that I've said should be fired and that has gotten fired. Like fucking, what's his name? Bronson Reed. Remember I said this guy's just never going to happen. These guys got Bull Dempsey written all over him. I don't care how many times they push him. He's going to be fired immediately, and he was fired immediately. Karrion Kross. It's not going to happen. Omos is another one in that level. It's just not going to happen. Let's move on. As a result, the match was completely useless. He beat Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley should be destroying this guy in 20 seconds, since in 5 years, Bobby Lashley will still be WWE in some capacity, and Omos will not be anywhere. Next up, we had Edge versus AJ Styles. The match delivered in many ways. The story of the match was AJ Styles' arm was hurt, and this allowed Edge to put on the crossface and then a sleeper hold and win. The big story of the match here is that Rhea Ripley has joined Judgment Day. I think this is a complete waste of time. Rhea Ripley sucks. There's nothing good about her at all. People all of a sudden pretended she was good because she's different, because she's tall, and she doesn't fit in the group at all. She's supposed to be this like rocker chick, not this like dark and evil thing like Edge is becoming, right? Edge used to be like a rocker guy, but now he's like a completely different character. You can change your character. I'm not saying you can't, right? But it's not as good of a fit as Damian Priest is, right? First of all, I don't even know how I feel about the fact that this group has a woman. You know, it just doesn't feel like a group that would have a woman. It's not a group that wants to go after titles. It's a group that wants to beat people up. So it doesn't really make any sense, you know, but invariably, she's going to go after the women's title, and I think she'd make a better champion than anyone else right now, because at least she's attached to Edge, who's doing some of his best work, in my opinion. This match was pretty good. Edge is awesome. Judgment Day rules. The fact that Edge even has to go out of his way to reinvent himself and do so successfully goes to show the kind of things that I mentioned earlier. Edge is Edge, and Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes are not on that level and never will be. It's impossible. The fact that Seth Rollins beats Edge clean is just ridiculous to me. It's just, there's absolutely no reason. No one benefits from this, right? Edge should be spearing Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes in a 2-on-1 handicap match and pinning them both clean. He's a different level. He's always going to draw more money. He's always going to be more over. He's going to be more entertaining. He's better than them in every possible way. So them beating Edge is it's just stupid, in my opinion. But anyways, it is what it is. Then we had Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair in a complete waste of time. The match itself wasn't horrible. I'm not going to lie. I like I quit matches as a concept. It was goofy. In the end, Ronda Rousey makes her say I quit with an armbar through a chair. It was just really goofy. Ronda Rousey being champion, in my opinion, has really no bearing on anything. Like, she's going to drop it in a few weeks probably and then go another hiatus. You know, it's a complete waste of time. Madcap Moss versus Happy Corbin. Who the hell cares, all right? Madcap Moss, I've always liked Riddick Moss. You know, I don't like the idea of Madcap Moss personally, but he's not the worst, right? And Happy Corbin, I mean, I think it's time. Just fire him. It's over. It didn't work out. It did not work out. I don't understand this insistence on keeping people around that are jobbers. Right? Baron Corbin ended Kurt Angle's career, and now he's getting his ass beat by a guy named Madcap Moss. All right, enough said. You know what I'm saying? Next up, we had the most disappointing main event, I think, in the history of main events. This is not a main event caliber match. In this match, we had the Bloodline, which is Roman Reigns and the Usos versus Drew McIntyre and RK Bro. Matt Riddle is not a main eventer yet. Randy Orton has not been treated like a main eventer in like 3 years, but fine, he is a main eventer. Drew McIntyre is a main eventer, and of course, Roman Reigns is a main eventer. The Usos are not main eventers. They, in my opinion, are lower mid-carders. Like the Usos, if the Usos go in a singles career path, right? The Usos should be like, they should be out there getting like buried by, you know, let's see, like if Dexter Lumis were to like debut on Raw, he should be destroying one of the Usos in 3 minutes. That's where the Usos belong on the card, in my opinion. They sure as shit don't belong in the main event. It's almost disrespectful to Roman Reigns that he has to be around these two like inferior cousins of his. They look like shit, right? They've been like fat their entire careers, right? They think they're these two tough guys, but they're like these two like 6 foot at most, 6 foot guys, like 180 pounds of fat. You know, they're not impressive at all. Roman Reigns looks like a god compared to them. That's like their only benefit is that they make Roman Reigns look bigger and stronger than he is because they're so flabby. The flabby Usos are out there in the main event somehow. Furthermore, since Roman Reigns holds both titles, there was no championship match in this pay-per-view. You know, I understand what they're going for. They're trying to suggest basically that Roman Reigns, by virtue of being Roman Reigns, is good enough to main event pay-per-views. He is the double champ, so it's an honor for anyone to watch him wrestle. However, motherfucks, right before WrestleMania, we were getting 2 title matches, 2 world title matches, typically, every pay-per-view. There were exceptions, like when Brock Lesnar's champion, he doesn't always defend it, but typically, there's 2 title matches every pay-per-view. At the very least, they could have found a way to make this for the tag team titles. Because otherwise, you have a lot of high-level superstars in terms of booking. You have the Raw Tag Team Champions, and one of those guys is the legendary Randy Orton. Then you have the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, the Usos, and you have the double World Champion. So you have a lot of titles in this, like involved, but nothing was on the line. So who the hell cares? Let's just say, for example, that the way that the match went was it starts and Riddle hits an RKO on Jimmy Uso and pins him 1, 2, 3, and then the Bloodline beats up the 3 good guys, right? What would be different about this match if that happened? Absolutely nothing, because nothing was on the line. Nothing mattered. This felt like those throwaway, like, you know those matches that they have on Raw, like usually in the second hour, where it'll start out as like a tag match, and then someone will interfere, and it'll become a 6-man tag, or it'll start out as a singles match between, let's say, Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns, and then at that point, like, the Usos will interfere, and then they'll be saved. Drew McIntyre will be saved by RK Bro, and then Teddy Long will come out and say, "We're gonna have a 6-man tag, playa," you know, and then that happens after the commercial break. This is what this felt like. This doesn't feel like a main event. You know, Roman Reigns, I get it. He's a big deal, and I like him as well. I mean, overall, I don't think he's that great, but I like him, right? Now, the mere fact that you have Roman Reigns in a match does not necessarily make that match a main event caliber match. And I'd like to say this other thing, cucks. This pay-per-view had 6 matches, okay? This was not even on the level of, like, you know, WrestleMania Night 1 in terms of, like, its booking power, right? It had nothing to offer. This was a complete waste of time, and I mean, not for me, because I stopped watching, and then I just read the rest of the results. I didn't watch the last 2 matches, so who knows? Maybe something happened in the main event. Maybe like Solo Sikoa debuted or something, but I didn't see it. So all I know is that it doesn't matter, because how can I be interested in this match, right? I knew that the Bloodline was going to win. Like, obviously, the Usos are going to win the tag team titles, you know? And the only interesting thing left with Roman Reigns is to see who will take the title from him. His title reign is already boring. You know, like, he's been boring for a year. He's not exciting by himself. He's good at what he does. Like, he's playing the character. He's good. His matches are interesting. Like, but the real question is, it's almost like a JBL title reign. The question is, who's going to take it from him? That's the question. You know, nobody else cares about anything else. Like, I know it's probably not going to be Drew McIntyre, so it gives a shit. You know, who's it going to be? I don't know. At this point, I think the only person that's worthy of taking it from Roman Reigns is Braun Breaker. He's the only one that actually benefits. Or, if they're smart, they'll do the logical thing and have the Bloodline versus Judgment Day, motherfucks. Put Tamina in the Bloodline so she can beat her ass. She can beat, what's her name, Rhea Ripley's ass. And then add a few more people to each group. Maybe Solo Sikoa. Add that jabron. And then add like a few people to Judgment Day. And then that can be the real feud. Think about how badass that would be. Like around like WrestleMania main event. Edge versus Roman. Spear versus Spear. Finally, no Daniel Bryan. You know, we're finally getting it. I thought Daniel Bryan was a good addition, but nevertheless, we're finally getting it. But and maybe at Survivor Series, they have like a Bloodline versus like Judgment Day like elimination match or something. You know, you can make this happen and it'll be badass. Because Roman Reigns, he can come out and be like, no one's left, I've beaten everyone. And then Edge can be like, well, while you were beating everyone, while you were busy beating Matt Riddle, I was busy creating like a super group, right? And to fight your super group. Because if it weren't for the Usos, and the story writes itself, Edge can basically say, if it weren't for the Usos, I would have beaten Roman Reigns. Because that's what happened. Let's be real. Roman Reigns, like, his title reign is already tainted by the fact that the Usos get involved in every match in the same exact way. The Usos come in, the opponent beats up the Usos, turns around and gets speared. That's basically the formula for every Roman Reigns match, right? Except for the Brock Lesnar one. So Edge comes out. I don't know how he's going to get the title shot. He's not going to win the Rumble again, right? But he gets the title shot maybe at Mania, hopefully, right? And then the bloodline gets neutralized by Judgment Day, and Edge wins. That's the only thing that makes sense to me, aside from my Braun Breaker theory of Braun Breaker comes in at the Royal Rumble, wins it, and then beats up Roman Reigns. That's the only thing that makes sense. Because everything else, like, no one else is good enough. You know, like, he's already destroyed Seth Rollins for like a decade now. For a decade, Roman Reigns is in position as higher than Seth Rollins. Like, Seth Rollins is like, it's not even like John Cena, Randy Orton. It's more like The Rock and Val Venus. Like, that's the level. Like, if Roman Reigns is The Rock, then Seth Rollins is like Steve Blackman or something like that, you know? Completely irrelevant compared to Roman Reigns. So, nothing comes of that. None of the other guys are good enough. Obviously, Cody Rhodes is just not good enough. Like, I mean, let's be real. That's just stupid. Like, to even suggest that he should beat Roman Reigns is just preposterous, right? The only one that makes sense, unfortunately, is Edge. That's the only one that makes sense, unless they bring back, like, I don't know, someone even cooler, but that's not going to happen. Edge, and then after that, you can have, like, you know, Judgment Day fall apart eventually, right? But the point is, Edge needs to win the title because he's doing some of the best work in his career, number one. And two, if it's not going to be Edge, it needs to be someone from NXT. And the only one that's good enough in NXT that can actually do it will be Braun Breaker, because he's the only one in NXT right now where you can look at it and be like, all right, this guy might actually be the face of WWE one day. Like, not the John Cena face, but like the, you know, like the I don't know, like the Randy Orton. I mean, he might be like the Randy Orton. He's not going to be the John Cena. Like, they still haven't found that guy. That's Roman Reigns, if anything. So, Braun Breaker is like probably the best guy they got in terms of like being the future. So, I don't know. I'd give it to him personally. But that depends on the way people look at it. I don't know what they're going to do, and we'll see. But that's the only thing that makes sense. Everything else was stupid. The pay-per-view was stupid. Backlash was like, just, first of all, the fact that it's called WrestleMania Backlash is annoying. But that's neither here nor there. Point is, pay-per-views need to make some sense. And I'm going to talk about this when I compare current wrestling to old wrestling based on my new observations as I'm watching Attitude Era Wrestling and why it's good. All right, cucks, take care of yourselves up in this piece.